The mic is going live now. Good evening, friends. Let's see if you're getting some sound out there in internet world. Before we go live from the studio here, great to see people tuning in. It is a beautiful night here in Virginia, and it is a beautiful night to be sharing some classic rock and roll with you. Really glad you're here. Pop in the chat, say hello, let us know where you're in from. Steve, it's wonderful to see you, my old friend. Andrew, welcome. I'm glad to have you all here. We are live at Cabin Studios, and it's wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to be able to have this experience with you tonight, an experience some 32 years in the making. Steve, wonderful to see you too. You were there in the early days, and I'm really glad that you're able to share this with us tonight. We are at Cabin Studios, where we've been working on this project for the last several months. I'm doing my best to look up at the camera, but I'm used to live streaming at home where it's right there on the computer, and I want to see you. I know you're here not just to see us, but to hear the work that we've been doing for these last few months. So I'm just giving everybody a minute or two to get on in here. Go ahead and keep telling us where you're coming from. If you're liking it on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, that's great too. We actually have queued up some treats for you tonight. Some of you are intimately familiar with Nor'easter and our music from back in the day, and some of you, this might be new. You might know me from my singer-songwriter work, or Dustin from his work with the Deadnecks or countless other bands, or his work here in the studio.
Beyond Borders.
Working with Beyond Borders, that's right. Dustin and I have worked together on 4 or 5 of my last projects since at least 2010.
Number of video projects.
Video projects too. So the video project he did tonight is the one that I'm really excited about today, though, because it's kind of a different video project. All right, I can see. Oh, excellent. My family is here. Our old engineer, Pat Mills, is here. Pat is a very special part of this project. Chris Gursky is here. The voice you'll hear on the recording tonight. So happy to see us all kind of gathered here in cyberspace, even from all our various different corners of the world. So I'm going to share a few things with you tonight. I thought it would be kind of fun to sort of introduce both the band and the project, because it's kind of a miracle that any of this is even here. There are very few pictures of the band, none that I've ever seen of us doing a show. We were like tens of thousands of bands during the 80s, harboring these big hopes and dreams of making rock and roll stardom and writing our own music. And most all of us wound up doing other things with our lives. And it's sort of a testimony to the musical spirit that inhabits countless garages and bars and dive clubs all across this country, most of which goes by without ever being heard outside of a small area. We were lucky that we got a chance to do a little something more before we parted our ways. This is the final iteration of Nor'easter. That's Chris Gursky up there on the rock, Paul Sainamore, our last performing bassist with us, and Matt Bouley. Matt passed away 19 years ago today, and tonight is especially for him to celebrate not only his life but his work. It is grand to be able to share that with you for sure. This is these are the closest things I have to pictures of us in action. This is Chris at my studio here in Virginia a couple years after the band broke up. Paul is here. Wonderful to see you, friend. Excellent. And I want to make sure that everybody can hear us okay, too. We've done a lot of work tonight to make sure that the mic volume and the reference mix that we're going to play for you in a little bit and the tracks that we're going to play for you tonight are all so you don't have to adjust your volume a whole lot. And, of course, it wouldn't be complete without remembering this guy, Matt. That's his son, Alex, who we had the pleasure of jamming with just a few weeks ago for the first time. Alex is 30 now, and it was it was a real treat. My dad was there, Daryl, our old bass player from After Midnight, and the four of us played music with some more old friends. Scott and Angela were there, and it was a really special evening. Here's Matt showing Alex about all he ever showed him was here's how you work the hi-hat pedal. But I'm really glad that Alex has what's left of Matt's drum set and plays it now and then too. So tonight is for Alex and for Simone and for Natalie too. It's really special to have you here. If Matt's family is here, anyone else from Matt's family, please do hop in the chat. I will say that to get into the chat, I think all you have to do is log into your Gmail or your YouTube or your Google account, and I see a lot of people are managing that. We're in from all over the place tonight, and that's really pretty cool. It's a beautiful thing about this internet business. Maybe, just maybe, some of you might remember having this, the tape from 1986, I believe. We recorded on a friend's 4-track cassette recorder down at Daystar Farms in Preston, and we put these together. And some friends of ours were taking a class in graphic design. 1986 graphic design, man. It's like pasting this and typesetting that and all the rest of it. Really kind of wild to think of it. But this recording, the one that we're talking about tonight, happened 2 years after the band split up. 1987, we played our last show in May. And in the summer of 1989, our friend Pat Mills had a 4-track cassette machine in his basement and said, hey, if you guys want to record. And we thought, wow, to get a decent recording of our songs, that would be really cool. So I wanted to share a little bit of that journey with you tonight too, because it's kind of wild. This is one of 2 pictures from that recording session. You can see Pat's big old mixing board over there and all the outboard gear, and carefully velcroed on the top of the mixing board is the 4-track cassette machine so that it wouldn't fall off. And here we are working on a couple of tweaks to the recorder. Now, there's 4 people in the band. There's like 10 drums and all the cymbals and all that. Nowadays, they would each have their own channel, like the studio here. You'd have probably 3 or 4 guitar tracks. You'd have plenty of tracks to do vocal takes. You'd do maybe 3 or 4 bass takes, and you'd kind of put together the best of all of it. A 4-track cassette machine means you've got 4 tracks. So when we did it, we recorded, each of us did our thing, and we got a mono drum track out of it. This is what a 4-track cassette machine looks like. That's it. That's what this recording started on. A few weeks into the project, Pat got a chance to buy a used 8-track reel-to-reel, and suddenly we were double our capacity of what we could do. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is crazy. We can overdub guitars. We can do harmonies. We can do all of that stuff. And so these are the original, what are they, 1/4-inch reels, right? Yeah. 1/4-inch reels that have the 8 tracks that we started with here in the studio. And some of it started on that 4-track cassette. So back in 2002, Pat and Maura Mills moved to South Carolina around 2000. And he took all of his gear from Plainfield, Connecticut with him and still had those reels. And I bought me this fancy schmancy digital recording workstation, and I was like, hey, let's get together and transfer those 8-track reel-to-reels and put them on the digital workstation. This would be awesome. So we did. It was September of 2002, and I remember I picked up the phone to call Matt Bouley on the way home, and I left him a message, good old-fashioned voicemail on the tape. And a few days later, he passed away from the lung infection that took his life. And I have to admit, for a lot of years, I didn't really have the heart to do much of any of that. And so the pandemic has been awful for a lot of things, but one thing it has done is parked my tour van in the driveway for the last 18 months and left me with a lot of time to think about creative projects and not a whole lot of creativity, frankly, to work with after finishing an album and book back in 2019. And so I started thinking about the Nor'easter project again, and I had these files that I'd carefully saved, and somehow or other they had made their way into Dustin's hands as well as mine. Now, one of the things about being here at Cabin Studios, this is the home of my dear friends Les and Stephanie Thompson. Stephanie is Dustin's mom, and Les is one of the founding members of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and that their platinum record hangs in the studio just over on the other side of this wall for the Will the Circle Be Unbroken album. It's a testimony to a young band catching lightning in a bottle, perhaps, but it's also sort of a reminder of doing high-quality work, even with low-tech equipment, is more than a little bit possible. It actually can make its own kind of magic. But I have to tell you, none of this magic could have happened without Dustin. Dustin and I have worked together on several projects over the last 12 or more years. It's been a lot of years now.
Time flies, having fun.
I trust him as my right-hand man in so many ways, but he's also an IT guy with mad skills. And those files that were on that workstation were of a proprietary format that I thought I had retrieved and found that they were corrupted. Well, I somehow had the wisdom when I decommissioned my studio back in 2009 to give a lot of my gear to Dustin as a thank you for all the work that he had done for me on a whole bunch of other stuff. So Dustin had the 1824, and he was able to crack those files and bring them into this environment over here. A brand spanking new 21st century studio where he and I have worked together for the last many years. So, it's pretty cool. So I introduced to you my friend Dustin Delage, tech wizard, sound guy, drum guy, but most of all, the one person who made this Nor'easter project this year possible.
Thanks. I remember getting one of the track outs from, I think, The King.
The King.
Which is not one that we've mixed yet, but I started playing around with that, and I really liked it. And when you first approached me with this, I kind of thought it was just going to be mixing that and maybe Poseidon's Realm, were the two songs that I'd heard. I didn't realize there was going to be like a whole album's worth of stuff at one point. Just for some background on the project, he went over the equipment that was used to transfer. It started with a 4-track cassette. That got dubbed onto 8-track reel-to-reel, so there's a generational loss, and that got transferred to digital via the 1824.
Yep.
And then I made the final transfer, and in that process, what we discovered was that there was a pitch difference.
Oh, yes.
For playback, so when the tapes were transferred digitally, the playback wasn't exactly, the pitch wasn't set right on the machine. I don't know what the issue was, but or maybe the masters we were referencing were, because they were from tape, like something happened and we needed to match the pitch of the digital files to the analog ones, which
more sorcery.
Yeah. Luckily Studio One gave the ability to kind of manage that fairly well by stretching that. It's not just pitch, it's pitch and time.
Think about taking a tape and stretching it out.
Exactly.
Without changing the pitch or with changing the pitch.
Yeah, and then certain sections, I couldn't just do it like all one file. I had to like figure out each section that seemed to have different pitch things. Anyway, I don't need to get too technical about it. If somebody wants to hear more about it, we can go into it. And originally I thought I was just doing the transfer and Andrew was going to do all the mixing, and he started, he did start that process, and then he needed help with the stretching, and then I signed on for
You got sucked in.
Yeah, no, I was having fun, and I'm still having fun, and I'm extremely motivated because it's interesting material, and it's good to see Andrew be happy. And there's tons, like, eventually I'm going to do my own stuff. I've got 4-track cassette stuff that just isn't around anymore. I have, like, the tapes are broken, I have to splice back together. And then other than those kind of details, like, if you want to know more about the mixing process, then just ask and we can get to that later.
Yeah, we'll take questions afterwards
but
for sure.
One of the big challenges was, as a drummer, trying to be happy with the drum sound and coming from a single track, trying to make it. I got okay results with just EQing and compression, but now I've taken it a bit further. I'm trying to make it sound like a multi-track drum kit, and that's separating each individual hit from the mono track and be like, these are all the snares.
Copy and pasting those little spikes on the waveforms.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have a reference.
We do. We have a reference mix.
And what it is it's a medley of contemporary music, I guess, style.
Of the era.
Yeah, era. And they're kind of volume leveled to match what our current masters for these mixes are, so that you would adjust your volumes on your playback to where you're happy, and then once we get through that, we will play you our song.
We'll roll you a mix.
Yeah.
By the way, over his shoulder, you can see two throwbacks to that recording. One is the 8-track reel-to-reel player. Pat and Maura were coming through here in Virginia in July and was kind enough to help us out with loaning us the recorder and the tapes, because there was one song where there was one track missing, one punch-in track that was missing, so we tried to extract it off of that. So that is the actual recorder that we used in 1989. And that is my trusty Fender Stratocaster that I still play, that I played back in high school, and that made every note on that Nor'easter recording too. So it seems only fitting that that member of the band ought to be here tonight too. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a reference mix for you. Before I do that, though, I want to ask your help with a couple of things, 3 things really. Because we are starting from scratch. It's like we're bringing this record to life and we want people to hear it and all of that, but we're like starting a 100-yard dash from outside the stadium. There's not a touring band. There's not the kind of radio support that one might have gotten back in the day when we were all doing this. So it's really word of mouth. And for all of you who are tuned in tonight, thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to open your mouth. We actually got a very basic website signed up today. I'm not sure that the email list is working, but you can actually click and send us an email from this one homepage. It's an appropriate website, nor'easter.rocks. I have not seen any other rock band with that domain, but I'm sure glad that we have it for ours. I thought that would be kind of a cool thing to do. It's going to be where all of the focal point of whatever we are going to be able to do with this recording, in terms of getting it out to reviewers, for people to buy it through our Bandcamp store, all of that stuff. So the website is definitely one. 2, social media, obviously. This word of mouth thing, golly gracious. We could use all the help we could get for all the work that we've been putting into it, but also for the legacy of this music too, that Chris and Matt and Paul and I were able to make back in the day. The fact that it exists now. All of those tens of thousands of bands back in the day, very few of them got to record their music, and it's such a precious thing that we have it. And then the third thing that you can do, we will probably do one more of these events, maybe, I don't know, sometime in November, early December, when we've got a couple more songs ready. We're going to do an Indiegogo campaign, and part of that is to help get the record out, maybe make a limited run of CDs of it, but YouTube is most definitely the way so many things are getting done. For those of you who are familiar with Iron Maiden and know that they have a new album out, they have 2 very cool animated videos, and one of our songs would be particularly well suited to being an animated video. So I'll put that slide up again at the end. My wife Michelle is in the chat room pasting in some of those links, and you can just click on them and hit them later on, and whether it's Facebook or Twitter, whatever you use, thank you for doing that. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna play you the reference mix. It's about a minute or so long, and
It's like 5 minutes.
Well, I'll probably only play about a minute's worth of it. How about that? What the point is just to get your volume set, make sure your listening environment is good.
Also, kind of clears the musical palette depending on what sets the mood.
It's the cracker that goes with the cheese, or the cheese that goes with the cracker. I forget. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the reference mix and kill the mic, and let us know in the chat room if you're having any trouble with it, and we'll be back on here in just a minute or two. Back to the desk we come. All right, so are your ears ready? It is... Are
you ready, Internet?
Are you ready to rock?
I can't hear you, Internet!
So the song that we queued up for you first was actually the only co-write, lyrical co-write, and Chris Gursky wrote the lyrics with me. And it was inspired a lot by not only Love Canal, but also a lot of abandoned industrial sites around where he lived in Lowell, Mass. And sort of kind of coming to grips with what that might be like. Musically speaking, it's really kind of cool because you hear some of our musical influences come to play, and it certainly is. It's got some interesting elements of everything, but most especially Matt takes off at the end, and I'm really especially moved to be able to share that with you now. So I hope you enjoy it, the 21st century debut of the Chemical Zone.
Early here, like any other day. The morning breeze rushes and blows the glittering mist away. The sunrise, an old man's searching for his youth. In the ground, the silent killer lurks nearby in deadly truth. Children used to play here, happy in their games. People about their daily work, you might even know their names. Death stalks the unknowing, the graveyard sudden grew. The torment and the torture amidst the damage that we do. Why isn't there anybody left here? What's gone and happened to our own? Why have they buried all the young ones? Here at the edge of the chemical zone. An acid rainfall turns a nearby forest drain. A mountain river washes all our hazardous waste away. The toxic chemical drum buried in the solemn countryside. The town down that lived here, they're waiting now to die. Why isn't there anybody left here? What's gone and happened to our own? Why have they buried all the young ones? Here at the edge of the chemical zone. Chemical Mother grimly weeping stands by her infant's grave. Our government and its leaders don't even try to save the lives of our children. Some die in the womb. They're born just to be encased in society's endless doom. Why isn't there anybody left here? Why can't we ever go back home? Why did our brothers have to die now? Here at the edge of the chemical zone. In the chemical zone. In the chemical zone.
Well, the world premiere, right? Actually, you got the sneak peek. This is sort of the final mixing stage for this song. We're pretty close to the end, but it's pretty cool to see you reacting to it. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, unfortunately, the YouTube stream kind of degrades the quality, but I think it still translates okay.
When you own it and you're listening to it yourself and you're in that space hearing all 11 songs end to end, I promise you the experience will be magnified a whole lot more. We're also working on a really cool cover concept. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Now, before I unveil a surprise on you here, I want to tell you that if you think about it, it's hard to imagine a band that hasn't been together in 30 years having any kind of success releasing a recording. But every time you go to a major sporting event, you hear the guitar riffs of that era. You hear Randy Rhoads playing Crazy Train when a relief pitcher comes out of the bullpen, or at a hockey game. You hear Angus Young playing Hell's Bells. You hear the ground shake under your feet at Lane Stadium in Blacksburg when Virginia Tech football team takes the field to enter Sandman. It's a whole new world, right? It's a whole different world. There's some pretty cool riffs hiding in here. Because you took the time to be here with us tonight, we worked up one more for you too. This is one of the riffs that it might be kind of cool to hear somebody come out of the stadium, out of the bullpen late in the 8th or 9th inning with the game on the line, the home crowd thundering to the strains of this. I always thought that this song was kind of almost a sort of a Spinal Tap spoof idea, and it was just kind of cool to play it. And then we started playing around with it, and the next thing I realized, we had a song that was a real earworm that kind of sticks with people, and it still does. It's been really fun sharing it with a couple of people behind the scenes, and finding out that, you know, it's not just us that are kind of enjoying hearing this. It's really pretty cool. And the fact that we were lucky enough to have Pat do the recording, to do such a great job of capturing the tracks in the first place. Now, Dustin has all the 21st century tools to take that recording and really make it shine, as you've heard. So we also have access to some special effects we never used to have either. So, before we turn you loose for the evening, one more, shall we? With feeling? I
really like the original mixes, by the way.
The original mixes are really good. They've been the benchmark that we've been working with all that time. And to put it in context, with that recording setup that you saw at Pat's place, none of that was digital. It had to be hand worked. Hit the mute knob, hit the volume knob. It would take 2 or 3 of us working as the mix was playing to go onto a 2-track, whether it was a cassette or another reel or whatever. You had to do all of it manually, and if you missed anything, you had to do it all over again. So that record that's hanging up, that platinum record that's hanging up on the wall in the other room, was a decade before that, when they would use the 2-inch tape, and if they wanted to use another take, they would literally take a razor blade and cut the tape and splice it together. So there's been a whole lot of digital splicing in here, but thankfully there's no tape on the cutting room floor or anywhere in here. It's all done a whole lot more easily now, but if it wasn't for Pat capturing these tracks really well to begin with, we wouldn't be able to do it. So with that, we'll unveil for you the Cosmic Metalhead. The Cosmic Metalhead. You know, I was thinking about the context of that song. Chris is very Polish, and we were all kind of
Polish?
104.3% at least. And so we were kind of watching what was happening in Eastern Europe at the time. Remember, this is like Soviet Union, Berlin Wall, and communism and all of that. And in Poland is the Solidarity movement happening. And there's also this like heavy metal youth. There was like heavy metal got really popular behind the Iron Curtain. And it was sort of like we were finding out these things about how the kids and rock were going to change the world. And it kind of seemed like, you know, all of a sudden the Cosmic Metalhead had a purpose. And as I listened to it these last couple of weeks, I've been thinking, yeah, you know, it's pretty cool. It's kind of a monument to the times, and yet it still sounds pretty neat now. So this is a great time. If anybody's got any questions about the recording or anything, we've been moving through all 11 songs. We're probably most of the way done with 4 of them and making steady progress. We're working pretty hard in here because we're having fun, and during the pandemic, fun has been kind of hard to come by for all of us. So doing this record has given us both something to really kind of be excited about, and the fact that you're here and helping us kind of generate some more excitement about it is really is pretty special and pretty awesome. So if you got questions about, you know, what we're doing or how we're doing it or anything like that, this is a great time to fire them in the chat there. I also I wanted to take a minute to put up that one slide again for those of you who are wanting to do some good with your interest and enthusiasm. We'd sure appreciate it. The email list that we're going to start keeping is the way that you'll find out when the advance copies of the record are available. And if we are going to do another first listen party for another couple of tunes and maybe unveil the cover, you'll be the first to know, because we'll do that by email. Following us on social media. We got a Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube accounts, and when we get to 100 people on the YouTube account, we actually can get rid of all the gibberish at the end of the name and actually have a youtube.com/nor'easterrocks or something. And then if you're wanting to help us bring this thing to life and maybe do some of the cool things that might get this record in front of thousands of people instead of dozens of people, that would be really a fantastic thing too. And we're working on what sorts of things might be interesting for rewards for an Indiegogo campaign. So something to think about. We'll be unveiling a lot of that over the next few weeks. But in the meantime, it's been really special to have you here. I want to take a moment to do one more thing. Our old sound engineer, Matt Turkovich, a.k.a. The Turk, he was an integral part of the band for the 3 years that we performed. He was there for all of our shows. He did a lot of recording for us. He was always that cool and steady presence, and, you know, always a lot of fun to party with, too. But he was always fascinated with sound and chasing sound. Took me to my first Grateful Dead concert in Philadelphia in 1985. Turk was a dear pal, and he passed away just a few weeks ago after a few years of having some really serious health struggles. And this project is dedicated to Turk as well. Sorely missed. So this is what you've heard tonight. This is the Chemical Zone and Cosmic Metalhead. The three of us did it in the studio when we did it live. Paul was an integral part of what we did. I suppose when I wrote the songs, I wrote the parts, and Paul made them better. And then I tried to give them the best I could when I did them in the studio. Pat did a fabulous job of recording it, and Dustin is the wizard who is bringing it to life now. And for all of you who are standing and applauding at the work that he's done, now you know why I've been raving about what's been going on here at Cabin Studios these last few months, because it's pretty amazing to hear it. So you know Nor'easter rocks, you know what to do, all of that stuff. If there are no questions, I suppose this is a great time to let you New Englanders get back to the Brady versus Belichick thing. But for the rest of you, thank you so much for tuning in and joining us tonight. On behalf of Dustin and myself, and Chris, and Paul, and Pat, and Matt, both of them, thanks, friends. Take good care of your good selves. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon.